Another Chicago police officer slain, and the ongoing violent crime in the city has people on edge, especially heading into the warmer months. To talk more about that and other stories coming out of Chicago, I connected with Chicago reporter William Kelly this morning, as we do each and every Monday morning, to get an idea of exactly what's transpiring in the Windy City. And we start with the story of a 30-year-old who was shot and killed after he got off work as a police officer, and all of the back and forth that we've seen so far just in the past 24 hours of prominent politicians, from the Chicago mayor to several progressive Chicago alderpeople, making statements about the slain officer, the 30-year-old, and also previous stories of criminal suspects getting shot and killed by police, and just the difference, the kind of cognitive dissonance that some people are feeling in these statements that are shared by elected officials in Chicago on both sides of this. So William Kelly breaks it down for us, the tragic story of what happened here and the reaction that we're hearing about on the streets of Chicago.
30-year-old died on Sunday morning in Gage Park, as you mentioned, driving home from his shift. What has a lot of people upset is that Mayor Johnson showed up for the press conference when Dexter Reed, the black driver who opened fire on police officers and was subsequently shot dead. He showed up for Dexter Reed's press conference, but he was a no-show for Louis Weska's press conference that took place over the weekend. So, it sends kind of a weird message that the mayor of Chicago seems to be prioritizing a black driver that opens fire on the police over a police officer who loses his life in what is apparently a carjacking. We don't, obviously I'm going to be out trying to get all of the details on this and many other crimes that occurred in Chicago over the weekend. But as of right now, we are assuming that it was a carjacking.
And it's just absolutely tragic. CBS Chicago reports Chicago police officer Louis Huesca shot and killed Sunday. And he had actually recently eulogized another fallen Chicago police officer. So clearly there's ongoing concerns that you've got violent crime and criminals seeming to go unchecked. But fallen in the line of duty, even though he was off duty, Officer Louis Huesca, a 6-year Chicago police officer, fatally shot. And overall public safety, major concern in Chicago, as William Kelly shares with us.
Well, it's in combination with violent crime that is being committed on the streets of Chicago against Chicagoans. And I think that bizarrely, you would think that any violent crime against Chicagoans would be enough of a reason for all Chicago aldermen, all citizens to rise to the defense of the innocent civilians. But for whatever reason, there has been, our mayor has kind of cloaked it all in social justice, that somehow armed robbers are only robbing students and grandmothers on the street because of systemic racism and lack of reparations for slavery, etc. But I think that for whatever reason, the combination of not only the armed robberies, which you would think would be enough, Greg, but the death of this young police officer and the millions upon millions of dollars, and now a $1.25 billion loan for migrant spending, has all added up to making the people of Chicago feel that they are under attack by our current political leaders. Greg?
With all of the concerns there are of the violence in Chicago, there was a pretty brazen video released and news stories about a University of Chicago students in broad daylight being approached by a criminal suspect and ultimately having to disarm that individual. Here's William Kelly talking a bit about that story.
You know what? The words don't come close to actually seeing the video. And when we talk about violent crime in Chicago, I almost feel that I'm not fully adequately expressing how horrifying this situation is. You have a stolen car, by the way, a stolen car pulls up, 4 or 5 armed black teenagers jump out, hold guns to the head of students, grandmothers. In one case, a pregnant woman in Ravenswood was walking with her husband, and they were not only robbed but beaten, sent to the hospital. But in this particular case, you actually had a video of a student at University of Chicago. I don't know if that video is still out there or if they've taken it down, because it's upsetting. But where you have one of these black teenagers jumping out of a car and trying to just rob this white student, as has been the case so many times before. But in this particular instance, this young blonde girl, amazingly, her survival instincts kicked in, and she grabbed the gun, Greg, and pulled the extended magazine out, saving her life and maybe the lives of the people around her, who all just stood who did not react at all. So this little blonde girl saves the day, Greg.
It's a pretty remarkable video. You can see that with ABC7 and NBC Chicago. They all have that video, and people just literally are sitting there watching it happen in broad daylight, of all places and times. So that's a pretty remarkable story. But you've also got just all of the other things going on in Chicago with the migrants spending and tens of millions of dollars, more than $1 billion, looking to invest in various parts of the city when it comes to your tax dollars in Chicago. William Kelly giving us a rundown of the latest there.
Well, here we go. There's an old joke that I remember even when I was a kid following politics, that, a million here, a million there, and pretty soon we're talking about real money, right? That's the old joke. Well, I mean, now we're talking $1.25 billion that Mayor Johnson has borrowed. We don't, now, obviously that has to be paid back with interest, and that's not even the whole story here. He wants to use that money to build a permanent migrant resettlement in Chicago. These are his words. And so it's not even, this is not speculation. And where does he want to do this? LaSalle Street, Greg. Now, anyone who knows anything about Chicago knows that LaSalle Street has historically, it's Chicago's Wall Street, let's say. It's the financial district, the literal ground zero of the financial district, where you have, bankers, lawyers. Obviously, if you grew up in Chicago, you aspired and you wanted to be a professional and be a mover and a shaker in the city of Chicago. You aspired to have an office on LaSalle Street, right? Now, Mayor Johnson wants to turn it into a permanent migrant resettlement, and this is clearly going to be the death knell of LaSalle Street, which is the beating heart of any hope of an economic recovery for the city of Chicago, Greg.
William Kelly, always good to chat with him and share that with you here with Bishop on Air, getting an idea of what's going on in Chicago. It's remarkable to see some of those headlines and the tragic stories that continue to come out of there. But every once in a while, you see a little ray of sunshine with that University of Chicago student practically disarming somebody in broad daylight who approached them with a gun. It's just incredible footage. So if you get a chance, seek that out as well. All right, it is Bishop on Air. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And join us each and every weekday morning. Appreciate you guys.